So, good afternoon, Sam. It will be great if you can start off with giving a quick introduction of yourself and what you do at Gulf IT.
Thank you very much, Adele. My name is Sam Emmanuel, and at Gulf IT, my role primarily is a business unit manager. So basically, in Gulf IT, we have business units for different part of information security that we manage. So as a company, we are quite focused and in our approach, and we are quite focused in how we reach out to customers. So we don't try to plug products into places, but we talk about solutions and we talk about solutions as a whole. So in Gulf IT, I take care of data security
Mm-hmm.
and I manage a few products in terms of that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I manage the products for the entire GCC region. So that includes all of the Gulf countries.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Sam. So, a big topic, obviously, that's going on everywhere across the world is the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on businesses. So, from what you have seen from Gulf IT side as a distributor, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the channel landscape?
Because of the unprecedented nature of the entire pandemic, nobody expected that. Nobody in the wildest dreams was thinking about anything of this magnitude to hit them, at least in their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, nobody was prepared. But at the end of the day, when we talk about a disaster, we also talk about disaster management. So this was obviously a big thing that nobody was prepared for, and we always, in terms of sizing a solution or in terms of proposing a solution to customer, we always plan for disaster management. But
Mm-hmm.
the very definition of disaster management, I believe, will change over the couple of months and years as customers realign to the entire part. So in terms of channel as well,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it came as a shock to everyone. Nobody expected entire countries to go into lockdown. Nobody expected the travel to be stopped, movements to be restricted. So everyone had to reinvent. So they took a couple of months. Obviously, the channel space and everyone, in fact, took a couple of months. But then came the time of reinventing yourself. Then came the time of reinventing the way you approach technologies, the way you approach customers, the way you position them, all of that changed. So the strategies of even vendors towards channel changed because everyone is in order to make complete utilization of the time, and that is the time when we were during time of Ramadan as well. People shifted to enablements and understanding technologies, designing solutioning or planning for ahead. So nobody was wasting the time, especially in the channel, but they were building something for the future. So that's what happened. And to be very honest, people have got primed and people have streamlined and people have become more focused towards, because this lockdown really helped people to think over. And yeah, during the lockdown, the market stopped, but people didn't stop innovating because at the end of the day, that's how you grow. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I think quantitatively you don't have growth in that time, but I
Mm-hmm.
believe qualitatively there has been a reasonable level of growth in terms of channel space.
So obviously, like you said, people didn't stop to innovate because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, from what we have seen in the industry, actually, they have doubled down on their investments on digital technologies because of it allowed them to cope with the impact of the pandemic. However, that also brought up issues on cybersecurity because they were kind of forced to speed up their adoption of digital solutions. So, from in that sense, what have been or what cybersecurity solutions have seen an increased adoption over the last few months?
When I think a couple of months back, there was a joke going around which said, which of these has led to the digital transformation of your company? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the options was COVID-19. So that is very true, in fact, because um, COVID-19, when it came in, nobody knew how to manage it. But when they started coming to terms with how it is going to be from now on, people started looking at their entire infrastructure differently.
Mm-hmm.
So cybersecurity is always a byproduct of what is already implemented. So when you talk about cybersecurity, the customer themselves started looking at new solutions to facilitate their own current setup. So the current setup started changing for customers. They started looking at a lot of remote workforce kind of environment. A lot of customers who could, still customers could not. Some of the insurance and BFSI customers could not, but the critical employees were given their workstation. So a lot of different things had to be managed. But when you come to a solution, when you come to a makeshift work environment in such scenarios, you still have to comply to the regulations. You still have to be compliant of what is going on. So in that space, restricted, or not just moving out of the restricted space, but it was also people were moving out of their restricted space. So for us, we saw a lot of demand for data security and identity management. So in data security, a lot of customers wanted to know what was happening with their databases, what was happening with the data, where was the data going in, who was coming in, how were they coming in, and what. So for us, products like Imperva, where you monitor the databases, products like Seclor, where you control the data, products like SailPoint, Beyond Trust. These were some of the bigger vendors for us, which generated a lot of demands because, as I said, customers, their end users, their IT users, not just they moved out, but also the data was going out, and they had to go when they are adopting such scenarios. They had to go for solutions that would complement them. So it's not just about, and also this also pushed the customers into cloud adoption. So over the last 1 year, the number of customers that we saw moving into private cloud or Microsoft or some of these major vendor clouds, we saw a huge spike in that number. So when you move to cloud, we also move to cloud security solutions. A lot of those solutions also came into the picture. But yes, this entire pandemic not just pushed forward the technological growth, the cloud acceptance and the cloud transformation for customers over the region, but yes, it also transformed a lot of the environment.
So, as one of the leading regional cybersecurity distributors, what kind of strategies or initiatives do you have in place in terms of helping organizations stay resilient?
Let's go back to March, when the lockdown started, everything is shut down. Companies, the end users, governments, uh, I think, except for health organizations and some of the critical financial organizations, and most everything else was shut down. Nobody was allowed to go out because people were still trying to come to terms with what next. And in such scenarios, there is always a gap and there is always a place for people to show the way forward. And that is where we as a distributor came into the picture. It's like not just in terms of introducing technologies to customers, but also introducing solutions to customer. Because when you talk about uh, being a leader in some of these spaces, I mean, we've been doing some of the vendors that we've been working in, and some of the vendors that we've distributed or we brought into the region over the past 10 years are some of the biggest vendors that you can find in the market in that technologies. So we've been very prudent in terms of how we choose vendors and how we position our vendors and how we work with our vendors. And that really helped because the vendors are they've been quite supportive, and we've also been quite understanding with them in terms of how to position the product. So let's say in terms of partners, people were ready to listen to what next. So if you talk about some of the local resellers, they wouldn't be interested in knowing what's in the roadmap for 5 years down the line or 4 years down the line. But this pandemic actually helped a lot of resellers and a lot of people to actually take notice and actually plan for what's ahead. And that's what we were doing. We were helping organizations look at their data and their identities as entities that they need to go after, or the entities, because one of our vendors in Pova, they call data as the crown jewel of an organization. So a crown jewel is something that needs a lot of protection. And for us, that was our focus as well, to ensure customer realizes what their crown jewel is. Because traditionally, uh, if you talk about, let's say, if 10 years down the line, 10 years before, if you talk to a customer about security, they will say, I have a firewall, I have an antivirus. Khalas, that's it. We're done with everything. But today, if you talk about security, customer starts talking, does not even talk about a firewall and an antivirus, because these are a given. They're talking about what is it that I, as a business owner, need to protect, because people have come to realize that each business logic or each business process brings its own cybersecurity challenges. And when it brings its own cybersecurity challenges, you cannot have one solution fits all. And that is what we have been able to educate the partners and organizations in the region about, how you have to look at what is important to you and what you ought to protect, to ensure nothing goes haywire and nothing goes out of your or there is no blind spots, rather.
Mm.
Because blind spots is something that was, especially, a lot of end users are made to believe that having some security solutions helps them cover everything. But it's unless people like us, who've been responsible distributor over the years, unless we go to the customer and start asking them questions, there is no response in terms of what are their blind spots, because they don't even know that blind spots exist. So that is what we've been helping customers, especially end users and customers, understand where their blind spots are in terms of data and identity governance.
Great. And what can the market expect from Gulf IT in the coming months? Do you have any roadshows, any new partnerships, any new announcements that they can expect?
Yes, we definitely, I mean, over the last few months, we have onboarded a couple of very potential vendors in terms of how the entire infrastructure goes itself.
Mhm.
Because we see, rather than looking at the products, we are looking at your entire IT or entire IT and your entire organization as a whole. So
Mhm.
we've signed up some automation and visibility solution. One of the biggest ones called Resolve, which has really helped us to fill our portfolio in terms of looking at all the verticals in an organization. So you have your operations, you have your security, you have your infrastructure. So all these solutions together, we have a solution called Resolve. So so we're looking at products which the customer does not know that they require yet. Because if you understand the market as of now, the trends have not yet taken their final form, because it took a couple of months to people to come out of the shock and to understand what the infrastructure needs. So trends are still being set. So
Mhm.
what we are trying to do is bring in solutions that will help the customers once the trends are set in the marketplace. Once everything is stabilized, we're looking at products from that perspective. And we expect this to grow as well over the next few months, over the next few quarters. We do see, because the government has been very supportive in terms of setting or helping or helping the entities ease into the business. So the way support has been provided, the way boost has been given, it's been quite helpful. So everybody is almost back to normal. Everybody is almost back to understanding how it is. And we do see a different trend for 2021. So we do see a different quadrants that has to come up in the market for different kind of products. So that is what we're looking at, like automation. Automation is something that was not really a trend and a need of the market. But today we've got customers who are actually looking at automation and understanding how it can help. So
Mhm.
that's where we've got Resolve. We've got uh, multiple ways of automation. We've got multiple methods of multi-factor authentications. We've got Swivel Secure. So these are some of the products that really helps customers become a cybersecurity complete organization. Because for a huge bank or for a huge enterprise, depending on, as I says, disaster management, we are seeing that disaster management will take a different definition. So if disaster management takes a different definition, the products with disaster management will also change and will also transform. So we see automation as something that will go into all the spectrum, when it will help the customers to remove dependency on a lot of these things which could not come together in the pandemic. So we do see new trends. We do see innovators upcoming innovators in the market space, especially partners who've taken up understanding customer requirement and building solutions as per different business process. So yeah, we do see a lot of growth. We do see a lot of different trends, and we are looking forward to announcing some of the bigger vendors that we're signing up over the past. We've been negotiating and talking about that and evaluating. And I think in the next few months, you will see a lot of the big products being signed up.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Sam. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.